Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sportycast YouTube channel. My name is Riyaz Barker, and I'm joined today by Coach Ziyaad, or I guess Ziyaad. He's not coach anymore. I don't know what's going on with that. How's it going?
I dropped the coach because we're going to be talking about a sport that I am not remotely an expert in.
Neither of us, actually. We're just doing this because we feel like, we want to learn, actually. That's the main reason why I'm doing this personally. Yeah, this is going to be our first video on the NFL, on American football. And both of us have kind of this is our first season, I guess we could say, that we have been following the NFL. So yeah, and like I said, we just want to learn stuff. So anything that you have, any podcast that you have that will be good for us to listen to, any thing that you think that will be beneficial for us to kind of increase our knowledge about the NFL and follow, I guess, the teams better and follow the tournament better, leave it in the comments below and hopefully it will help us out. And forgive us for not knowing what we're talking about precisely or in detail, I guess.
Yeah, we're gonna give a basically a beginner or NFL
Yeah,
101 kind of thing. Since we just got our feet wet.
yeah,
I've been following it on and off, like just big storylines and stuff for past couple of years. But this is the first season I followed it like weekly.
okay.
And keeping track of all the different teams and movements and so on. And obviously, with the fantasy football, it was really fun. So that also kind of played into me following it a bit more
Yeah.
intensely as opposed
And
to
I
the
mean,
previous years.
that makes a big difference because then you also get like you I would say between the two of us are the stats man in between the two of us. So,
Yeah,
I
there's
don't
a
know if
lot
that
of
helps.
numbers out there for this.
And I'm more of the eye test guy. I'll just watch it and I'll be like, oh, this guy did well this week. This guy did well this week, and that's as much knowledge as I know. So yeah, well, we're gonna basically talk today in today's episode about the playoffs that are taking place this weekend and throughout the next week. And I guess there's a couple of really interesting games for me, and a couple of not boring games, but like more like a game that I'm less interested in. And we'll start with one of those, which is the Texans versus the Chargers, which takes place tomorrow at 11:30 p.m. South African time. Not sure what time it is there by you, but
Yeah.
yeah, the Texans versus the Chargers wildcard round in the playoffs. That's going to start us off this weekend. How do we feel about that? Texans
I
versus the
mean, look,
Chargers.
maybe like you say, it's not a game for the casual fan, but it
Yeah.
is quite interesting because the Chargers are playing at the Texans. So when it comes to American sport, they put the home team last or second rather than first. How we used to in other sports. So the Chargers are playing at the Texans, which is in Houston, and they have the Texans have the former rookie of the year in CJ Stroud, who was fantastic last season, but
One of
this
my
season he's
favorites.
kind of having what they call the sophomore slump. He's not as
Okay.
good as he was. He's coming up against the Chargers, who have a fantastic coach in Jim Harbaugh and a quarterback who's found his form in recent times in Justin Herbert. So
Mm.
it's going to be an interesting battle. Uh, Funny enough, the Chargers are favored to win it, or slight favorites to win it, even though they are playing away. And it's based on the fact that they have a better defense. They have one of the better defenses in the league, and they're also
Okay.
getting back their number one running back, J.K. Dobbins. So the Chargers are the favorites against the Texans, and I mean, I'm not the man to argue with the
With the
pundits.
bookies.
So it's probably yeah, the book is it's probably gonna see the Chargers win.
Yeah, I mean the Chargers also I think have a one game advantage in the regular season. I think they went 11-6 or
Yeah,
something
they
like that.
had, they had a better record than the Texans, who just snuck in with a record of 10-7. So they won
Yeah,
10, lost 7. And like you said, the Chargers won 11 and only lost 6.
but I mean also in that AFC South, we were just talking about it off air, and I mean, it's not much of a challenge there in the AFC South. So, I
Yeah, I
think any
mean,
team,
it could be one of those where you're the best of the worst, right?
yeah, yeah. Basically, it seems like that's what's happening there in the AFC South. But it's going to be, like you said, I think it's still going to be a good game because, like you said, CJ Stroud hasn't been, I guess, too on point this season. but I still like him as a. I could see like due to the eye test, I could see that he's quite a decent quarterback.
Yeah,
So
he's
um,
definitely a very good quarterback. He's been unlucky because his top wide receivers, or some of them actually have been injured. So his number one go-to guy is Nico Collins, who's fantastic, but he lost Tank Dell
yeah,
recently for the season. So he's had a bit of that. And the O-line for the Texans is quite weak, so they haven't been able to protect him as well, which means he's always throwing under pressure. So, tough luck, mate. That's how it goes.
that's one thing I've actually realized this season while watching. Like, is that the O line is super important. Like, if you have a decent O line, it makes such a difference to your quarterback and the way that your
Yeah.
offense runs. It's crazy, actually.
Yeah.
Um, and obviously, you have people like Lamar who doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if the O line is bad or good. He'll just make a way to complete the pass or make the run. Um, but yeah, so are we going? Are we? What do we think? I know the bookies are taking the Chargers. What do we think in that Chargers
Nah, I'm
Texans game?
I'm going with him. It's hard to argue against Jamabo. Fantastic coach, and I think he's going to take the Chargers further than most people expect.
Is it going to be close?
Yeah, I reckon you're probably looking at a game decided by about 3 to 6 points.
Okay. I'm gonna back my boy and I'm gonna go CJ. I'm gonna go with the Texans
Okay, nice,
uh,
nice, nice.
by 3 points. It's gonna give you 3 points. It's gonna be a close game, I think.
Yeah,
It's gonna be a
that's
close
that's
game.
what the predictions are saying by 3.
So we won't like we won't go with complete predictions like the Chargers by 3, but I'll go Texans by 3. The next game that
Okay.
is on Sunday is the Ravens versus the Steelers. Ravens obviously one of your favorites. I'm not sure why that is. If it's just because of Lamar and King Derek, but what's the case there?
Nah, it's Derrick Henry for me because he's one of
Okay,
the guys in my fantasy team. So he's an amazing running back, and he scored a lot of points for me. So it's hard to look against that. But
so
the
loyalty.
Ravens are overwhelming favorites for this game. I mean, they're playing at home. They're on a good run of form, whereas the Steelers have tailed off in the last couple of weeks. I think they lost their
Yeah,
last 4 games on the bounce,
yeah,
including losing to the Ravens. So Russell Wilson, who's the quarterback for the Steelers, has kind of dropped off in recent weeks, and his partnership with George Pickens has come under the microscope because he just hasn't been able to find him.
yeah.
Whereas I think the Ravens have different ways to beat you. The the one thing for the Ravens to note is that their number one wide receiver is out. Zay Flowers, he's out of the game. So
Okay,
they're gonna have to rely on, wide receiver 2 and 3, Bateman and Aguilar, and they're probably going to you're gonna see Lamar Jackson throw the ball a lot to his tight ends. So Mark
yeah,
Andrews and Isaiah Likely. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how they adapt to that. But the thing with Jackson is he's got so many weapons. He can throw, he can run, he can give the ball off to Derrick Henry, who can run. So they've got tons of options in their offense. And I think the Steelers, who are known for kind of slowing the game down and winning tight contests, they what you'd call spoilers. Like if you compare to our soccer or football teams, you're talking about the
Newcastle.
Stoke City or Everton,
Oh,
or they
okay.
wanna get a draw. They
Yeah,
wanna win nil, or they wanna draw 0-0, or grab a goal off a set piece. Whereas you'll see the Ravens are definitely more diverse in
explain.
their attack.
Yeah. And I think on that point, actually, I have a stat here that Lamar Jackson is actually the quarterback with the most rushing yards this season, which surprised me kind of. Um,
Yeah, I mean the Jayden Daniels also is quite good. We'll come to him a bit later when it
yeah,
comes to rushing. But yeah, Lamar's just fantastic. Like I said, he can run, he can throw, he can do it all. The
he
only thing is there's a
scrambles.
question mark on Lamar Jackson with regards to playoff performance. He hasn't always been hot in the playoffs,
Okay.
and he's going to have to prove or shake that tag as a bit of a choker when it comes to the playoffs. So let's see. Because he's a perennial regular season MVP. He's won it a couple of times. He's always in the discussion. But can he take his
Yeah.
team, all the way this season?
Okay. Sounds good. Also, are we gonna go with predictions for the game? Are we gonna go with the Ravens by quite a bit?
Yeah, I would say Ravens by 10.
Okay. I'm with you on that. I think, like you said, I think the even though Zay Flowers is out, who's been great this season, and I think he's in your fantasy team as well. Um,
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
like you said, I think they have a lot of different weapons that they can use, and to have someone like Lamar is, even though, like you said, he's in the playoffs isn't good, but I think that having someone just with that ability to find or use all these weapons, I think is really important. But it's going to be interesting to see against the Steelers who have like such a good defense.
Yeah, I mean
But I
the
think,
Steelers
yeah,
have a fantastic coach. Mike Tomlin is one of the best in the game, but again, it just doesn't have enough. It's gonna be tough for them. They're gonna have to keep the game close, like something like
yeah,
12-9, or something within a field goal is how the Steelers normally win games, and it's very hard to do against a Ravens offense like that.
yeah. I think they're going to have to try and sack Lamar as much as they can. Otherwise, it's get the turnovers and get the punt in. I think it's going to be super important
Yeah,
for the Steelers.
they have to rush him.
Yeah, they do have to rush him. Going on to the next one now. It's your favorite quarterback and mine. Everybody's favorite quarterback. Yours, his, mine, ours. If they will talk about him everywhere, it's the Bills against the Broncos. It's Josh Allen's Bills. What's the situation with Josh Allen? Is it a meme? Like what is the buzz there?
Nah, I think he's a really good quarterback, and the thing is, initially coming in, he wasn't as good or as hyped up as a prospect, and he's actually gone on to exceed what people thought he could do. And
Okay.
he's just a normal, one of those run of the mill guys who just happens to be a quarterback and who just happens to be engaged to Haley Steinfeld now.
Okay.
It's just one of those things, man. He's got a good team as well, and he stays out of the. I suppose there's no bad stories, bad publicity. It's just goes to work, does his thing, gets the win, and they move on.
Okay. Interesting. And his opposite number in this game. Did he get injured at some point? Who is it? Is it Bo
It's
Nix?
Bo Nix. So the Denver
Yeah.
Broncos, they selected Bo Nix in the first round of the draft.
Okay.
And Sean Payton, who is their coach, I mean, there's a Netflix movie about Sean Payton if you want to check it out. I must just check the name, I can't remember. It stars Kevin James as Sean
Okay.
Payton. Because, yeah, it's an interesting story. Go check it out. No spoilers. But yeah, Sean Payton was the coach of the Saints with Drew Brees, one of the legendary quarterbacks. And he's now with the Broncos. He had Russell Wilson last season. It just didn't work at all. So they shipped Russell Wilson off to the Steelers and they drafted Bo Nix. I think they drafted him seventh. I could be wrong, but definitely in the top 10. And him and Peyton have just clicked. Bo Nix is a solid young quarterback. Funny enough, when you say young, he's older than quite a few players because of the COVID situation. They were able to
Okay.
extend their college career. So he spent a lot more time in college than other quarterbacks traditionally do, but he's been solid all season long. And I think for the Broncos, it's just one of those things where happy to be there. We
Yeah.
qualified, uh, and we're just happy to be in the playoffs. So I don't expect much from them. Whereas Buffalo, one of the stronger teams in the league, I think they should win fairly easily.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the playoffs, anything can happen. But I don't see anything happening for the Broncos there. I think it's just a participation medal for them, which is great feather in the cap and something to build on for next season.
Yeah. That's a great note. And I mean, um, I think that if I'm not mistaken, they beat a second or third string Chiefs on the last weekend to make it, something like that. The
Yeah,
Broncos. So
38 zip.
yeah, I mean we shouldn't read too much into that, but I think yeah, the Bulls should win it quite easily, um, and our favorite quarterbacks will go through to I guess to
Yeah,
a
so the
playoff
funny
stage.
story about the Bulls quickly is that they've actually gone quite deep in the playoffs, but they always end up playing against the Chiefs, and Josh
Okay.
Allen just hasn't been able to overcome Mahomes yet. So it's almost like everyone's saying it's inevitable they're gonna make it up until that game where they have to play the Chiefs,
Yeah.
and that's gonna be interesting to see if they can overcome that hurdle or not. But yeah, it's if you're asking for a prediction here, I'm gonna say
Yeah.
Bulls by 12.
Okay. I'll go Bulls by I'll make it close. So I'll go Bulls by 5. But they do have to overcome. Let's see, they have to overcome both the Ravens and the Broncos to get to that Chiefs game in the first place.
Yeah,
In that AFC section. So it's going to be interesting to see if the Bills can do it. I think that side is a bit stacked. That side of the draw is stacked.
yeah, definitely
All the
much
all the teams,
stronger.
all the games we spoke about now is on that side. And before we move on to the NFC, and like I would say all 6 teams that we spoke about are all very decent, like very good teams that could all give, I guess, the Chiefs a run for their money in that quarter and semi. Besides, maybe I guess firstly the Texans. But we move on now to the the NFC. I think I said, is it the NFC? Yeah, the NFC side of the draft, the wild card rounds, and the first game is on Sunday, and it's between the Eagles and the Packers. The real MVP, part of the Eagles, the real MVP against
Saquon.
Saquon, obviously the most rushing yards this season out of any of the players. That amazing backward vault that he did as
Man,
well.
that's the highlight of the season for me. So
It's crazy.
insane.
I don't know how he does these things, but yeah, the Eagles are playing the Packers. What do we think about it?
Look, the interesting thing with Eagles and Packers, it was the first game of the season. They played in Brazil, so
Okay.
neutral ground, and it was actually a very entertaining game, which the Eagles eventually won, but the Packers did start off quite well. So I think we'll see something similar. I mean, a lot has happened. 18 weeks have passed since that game, and the Eagles are coming in with a bit more momentum than the Packers, I would say. So the Eagles are favored to win this one. Obviously, a home ground advantage. Their record was 14-3 coming in, whereas the Packers were 11-6. And Jordan Love was, a bit injured during the season, so it was a bit
Yeah.
tougher for the Packers. The the thing to note here is that Jalen Hurts has been in the concussion protocol. So Jalen Hurts is the quarterback for the Eagles. He's been in the concussion protocols, which means he hasn't trained as much as you'd have liked, obviously coming into the playoffs. And he's been cleared to play, but we don't know at what level he is, how rusty he is, and so on. So that does make it a bit more interesting in terms of the Packers being able to hang with the Eagles. But I think the Eagles will have too much. Obviously, with Barkley, they've got great wide receivers in AJ Brown and Devonta Smith, and a lot of talk about it is that they'll initially go heavy on the running game to ease Hurts into the game. And then once he gets comfortable and shakes off a bit of that rust, he can then start using his weapons out wide. So the Packers are quite good. I mean, they're not a bad side at all, and they can compete. But I think the Eagles will see this one through.
Yeah, the Packers actually surprised me this season. In all honesty, I think they've been very decent. But also even the Eagles second running back. I can't get to his name now, but even he is very decent. Like the Eagles running backs are
Yeah,
very very good. So are we? But I mean, we're going for the Eagles in that one easily, I
yeah,
suppose.
definitely. Yeah, I think Eagles by 4 or 5 is where I'd land. The
Mm-hmm.
thing with the Packers, I think, just to note on that team, they're not really star driven. They're more of a collective. So they have a
Yeah.
fantastic young coach in Matt LaFleur, and they're just more collective, man. So all their wide receivers are good. Romeo Dobbs, Jayden Reed. They got a couple of guys that aren't like clear 1 and 2, but they do the job as a collective. So that's the one thing for the Packers to note. And Jordan Love is actually really good, good young quarterback as well. But yeah, Eagles for me.
From there on to another young quarterback. I guess my second favorite quarterback. That I love. Like well, actually, he might be my favorite quarterback of the season. And bear in mind, I've only watched one season, so
Yeah, fair enough.
I
Well,
don't
he's
know.
only played one, so
Okay, but that's good to know. That means like
you guys
we
have the
came in
same entry
together.
point. Yeah,
Yeah, we came in together. I'm obviously talking about my boy Jayden Daniels. I just really like him. It's just his order on the pitch, the way he throws the ball, the way he also like he's good on his feet and scrambling as well. So,
yeah,
the Washington Commanders against the Buccaneers, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that's on Monday. And what do we have about this match? Tell me all the things
yeah.
on why
So
Jayden is going to lose.
look, so speaking of Jayden Daniels, like I said, now number 2 pick coming out of the draft. and he's been much better than advertised, right? Obviously, Caleb Williams went ahead of him, but he's had the better season by far. Also, less
Yeah,
expectation, right? Being drafted second than going first, but they're just a really good side. The Commanders, they're young, so they make a lot of mistakes, but they play with that fearlessness where it doesn't matter if we win or lose, we're gonna learn. But with all of that, they've actually managed to win a lot more games than most people expected. And like you
yeah,
said, Daniels can do everything. He can run, he can throw. Scrambling is really good. He had good wide receivers. Chris Godwin was someone who was a clear number one, a really good wide receiver who went down early on in the season, and they've just
yeah. We
carried
hardly saw
on.
him.
They carried on without him. They got some good running backs in Austin Eckler, who's coming back from injury now. But I mean, I don't think they'll have enough to beat the Buccaneers. And the Bucks are interesting, right? So again, just to bring tie it back to the football or the soccer that we talk about, they're owned by the
Yeah.
Glazers, who own Manchester United,
Okay.
and
So we
their
want him to
quarterback is
lose.
That's actually a good point, right? I didn't think of that. So yeah, maybe we want them to lose.
but,
This is, I
but yeah,
think, if
okay.
there is a chance for upset, the chance is here. But I think the Bucks just have a better offense overall. So Baker Mayfield's a solid quarterback. He's experienced, and he's got amazing wide receiver in Mike Evans, who always goes under the radar, but has had consecutive. I want to say it's been 11 consecutive seasons um, of 1,000 yards catching. So that's a fantastic achievement. And I think this is going to be a high scoring game. A lot of people are saying it's going to be a shootout. So with that being said, I reckon it's going to be Tampa Bay in a high scoring game. They'll win by two or three, but it's going to be entertaining for the neutral to see a lot of offense.
I think in and if I'm not mistaken, if I can recall this game in the regular season, I think it was a high scoring game as well. It could even have gone to OT. Or am I thinking about the Bengals? It might have been the Bengals and the Bucks. But in any case, I also someone who surprised me is Terry McLaurin from the Commanders as well. He's done really well. And like you said about Baker Mayfield actually has the third most passing yards for the season, which is surprising as well, to me anyway.
Yeah,
Uh,
he's been consistent. So I mean, it's
yeah,
been it's
he's been
been
really
good for
good
him.
as a quarterback.
Gordon
So,
also
um,
under the radar, consistent performer for the Commanders.
so are you going for the Bucks to win
Yeah,
this
I'm
one?
gonna stick with the consensus. I'll go Bucks. Like I said, it's gonna be a high scoring game, but I think the Bucks will win it in the end. You obviously going Commanders.
Of course, I have to stick by my boy. I'll go with the Commanders. In fact, if it wasn't for the Lions, I'd want the Commanders to win the whole thing. But of course, the Lions have that bye and are
Yeah,
through, and they will be playing the team that are in the last game. That's on Tuesday. The winner of the game on Tuesday will be playing the Lions, who have a bye in the first wildcard round. And in this game, of course, it's the Rams against the Vikings. Probably, in my eyes, one of the best games of the wildcard round. How do we feel about that?
yeah, it's probably the highlight um, of the round. One thing to note here is obviously with the Los Angeles wildfires, the game was supposed to take place at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, but it's
Yeah.
officially been moved now to Glendale,
Okay.
Arizona. So the home ground advantage that they had is gone, but it hasn't made much of a difference according to the predictions here. And the Rams are still slight favorites, which is quite actually I lie. Vikings are slight favorites,
Okay, that
but
makes more sense.
the Rams obviously with the experience and the coach Sean McVay, they they can take on the Vikings, fairly easily. And I think they beat them in the regular season. They beat them 30-20. So this is going to be very tight. I think there's a lot of interesting things in this game. You've got two fantastic quarterbacks. So you got Sam Darnold, who's been like the find of the season in some ways because he was basically on his way out of the NFL and suddenly um, the Vikings drafted JJ McCarthy in the first round as the quarterback, and he got injured. So Donald had to step in, and he's just been amazing. Whereas the Rams have Matthew Stafford, the old guy, on his way out, kind of, the last hurrah. It seems he already won the Super Bowl with the Rams a couple of years ago. So you got the old versus the Sam Darnold. You've got the wide receiver battles. So Justin Jefferson is, I would say, probably the best wide receiver in the game. Most people would agree to that. And
Yeah,
Cooper Cup was the best a couple of
I
seasons
agree.
ago, and he's tailed off a little bit for the Rams. You got Puka Nakua also from the Rams, who's just been phenomenal. This is his second season, and he does some amazing things.
Yeah,
So you've got the wide receiver two for the Vikings, Jordan Edison. So you got
Edison.
on both teams, you got two good wide receivers. You got the quarterbacks. It's the running backs are also really good. Aaron Jones for the Vikings and Kyron Williams for the Rams, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
So it's honestly the offenses are really good. The coaches are fantastic. You got Sean McVay who's won it all before. You got Kevin O'Connell who's one of the most highly regarded coaches in the game at the moment. Some people call him the quarterback whisperer. He can make any QB good. So I reckon it's going to come down to which defense can hold their own and which defense can put the most pressure on our position to cause the mistakes or to spoil the plays to see who goes through. This is the first one. I think I'm going to go against the consensus here. And I'm leaning a bit more towards the Rams. One of the reasons as well is that the Rams are owned by the same owners as the Gunners. So,
okay.
I support Arsenal, got to support the Rams, right?
I suppose so, if you say so. I mean, that's. But I think you're 100% correct. I think the defense is where it's going to be. I think as long as whichever defense can kind of keep the other one out, um, the best I think is going to be um, in the driver's seat. And it's difficult to look past the connection of Donald and Jefferson, right?
Yeah.
But Matthew Stafford has had a great season as well, so it's going to be really, really interesting. And I'm going to go with you. I'm going to go with you. I'm going to go with the Rams to win, only because I don't want the Vikings to go through and beat the Lions. That's the only reason. I don't want the Lions to lose, so I'm going to take the Rams to win so that they can just get beat in the next round and be happy about it. And
Yeah. So
that's
just on that point quickly for the listeners, we spoke about the Chiefs and the Lions. They're obviously not playing in this round of the playoffs because they both earned the number one seed in their respective conferences. So what happens when you are seeded number one, you earn a bye into the next round, which is called the divisional round. So that would be the Kansas City Chiefs on the one side and the Detroit Lions on the other side.
Thanks. I also needed that explained to me because I didn't know what was going on half the time when I'm looking at these brackets and things like I'm like, this doesn't make much sense to me, but that's very well explained. Thank you. I appreciate that. So on in the AFC, obviously, as you said, the KC Chiefs they got a bye and they were in the next round, and they will be taking on the winner between the Texans and the Chargers. And then the Lions, they obviously finished number one in their division, so they will be taking on the winner of the Vikings and the Rams in the next wildcard round. So it's going to be interesting. Thanks for joining me here today, Ziyaad. Is there any last things that we want to talk about before we go?
No, it was fun to chat a bit about the NFL. I think we went a lot longer than we expected to. But
We
as you
did.
can see, if you look at the graphics, we've got a little logo up on the screen. It says Sporticos Gridiron. Let us know what you think of the name. If it's something you want us to keep. If you have any alternatives, let us know. Should we redesign or are you guys? Let us know what you think so we know if it's working or not, and it is something we should stick with. I'm pretty sure we'll be back next week with the divisional round regardless of how many views this gets, because we need somewhere to talk about this. But let's see, couple of weeks to go until we get to the Super Bowl, so we'll build up to that, and then do a post match after the Super Bowl as well, and see if this is something we can do a bit more going forward.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, it's this is more for us, right? Because
Yeah,
we just wanted to speak about it. We just wanted to speak about it and find a place to just put it out there. So also, I really want to like kind of have people tell me stuff because I'm trying to get more information so that I can learn more about the whole thing,
yeah,
and then take it from there. So it's going to be interesting. So leave it in the comments below. Like I said before, at the start of the episode, leave some podcasts in the comments. Leave some informational videos, YouTube videos in the comments that I can kind of go check out, and give us your predictions as well in the comments below. Tell us why the Lions are going to win the whole Super Bowl, and we'll hopefully be back next week. We'll hopefully be back next
Nah,
week with the next
we'll,
round.
we'll be back. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Shots, yeah. We'll see you again next week.